Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and it's time to review Captain America Civil War. You guys watched my video where I talked about the trailer and talked about how I thought the movie was going to be and that kind of thing. You know that I thought that this movie is probably going to be the best, the biggest movie of the year. And I have to say I'm fairly certain I was right. This movie was fantastic. Having seen Batman v Superman and then this one, it makes me realize even how much more problematic the other movie was. But we're not going to get into that. That's just to say that this movie really did just about everything right. It was so good, and it had a huge cast, a big cast of big names, but that doesn't even matter, just a big cast of big characters. And it worked. It worked so well. And I think it even worked better than the last Avengers. And by think, I mean I'm positive. For me, it worked way better than the last Avengers movie. So it was just so good. It wasn't perfect. There are some things that I have problem with. One of the things, I don't know how you guys feel about this. I'm curious what the general consensus is, but it's the storyline in general. I know it existed in the comics. It exists in the comics, and it's kind of like it's a regular storyline. I mean, we've seen it a few times in different ways, in particular in the Marvel comics, but it's a common storyline throughout history. You know, who is in charge of who, that kind of thing. Who's got the right to tell who to do what? I'm sure there's supposed to be a whom in there somewhere, but I don't know. So we've seen that storyline before, but I think in this particular context, not the movie, but just kind of the movie, it's hard to describe. There's something about it that doesn't work for me, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about what did work, which is pretty much everything else. The characters all get their time to shine. In particular, we have Spider-Man, who made his debut in this cinematic universe, and it was perfect. It was so good. He did a good job as Peter Parker, and it didn't take away. Like, a lot of the times you don't have the superhero as the superhero. You have them as their regular identity. People are like, oh, it was no good. We want to see Spider-Man. But it was a good job, especially since we had to get introduced to him. It worked really well. He was a good Peter Parker. It felt right. And then when he became Spider-Man on screen anyway, he already was. It works. It works so well. The only thing that takes me out of it a little bit is he's obviously very young in this version, which I know it's not inaccurate, but to see him fighting against full-grown adults, it's a little odd. Obviously, he's got superpowers, and it's not a big deal, but you still have a full-grown adult, superpowered adult fighting a kid, even though he's got superpowers. It's a little weird, but it worked really well. In every way, Spider-Man was awesome. The suit looked good, the CGI, the movement, the fighting, the webbing, everything worked really, really well. He's got the canisters of webbing, that worked well. The web shooters. It was just really, really good. And they worked in Ant-Man and Hawkeye and all these guys who aren't quite as powerful as some of the other ones. They all fit in nicely. And that's one of the things I want to talk about is my biggest problem with Age of Ultron was, well, it's kind of twofold, was that Ultron, the main actual Ultron, wasn't in the movie enough, and it was too many just thousands of drones getting smashed up. And that lent itself to lots of monotonous, kind of uninteresting fighting. And that's what took me out of Age of Ultron a little bit. It was still a great film, but it didn't have that it factor. This movie had that. Think of it this way. If you're playing Street Fighter, at least if you're familiar with Street Fighter, Age of Ultron was a whole bunch of just regular moves. Nothing really fancy, no good combos, no supers. It was just a whole bunch of regular moves. This movie, every action scene was some kind of signature move. It was a Shoryuken or a flash kick or whatever. Every character had a chance to do something that stood out and was memorable. I barely remember anything from Age of Ultron, and I've seen it a few times. Every fight was just, it had style, it had character, it was so well put together. Maybe a little heavy on the editing, too many cuts back and forth in specific fights, not from fight to fight, but like, let's say from Spider-Man fighting Bucky. Maybe too much cutting. not really, but I could see somebody make that argument. But it worked really well. It was so good. Ant-Man becoming Giant Man, Hawkeye shooting Ant-Man on the arrow, the War Machine getting grabbed by Giant Man, and then the webbing getting involved, and Scarlet Witch throwing cars at people. It was just, everything had so much pizzazz, oomph. It was really, really well done. There was no character I felt like that got overshadowed. They all had their role, except kind of for Vision. Now, I know he's generally kind of a neutral party when it comes to the two clashing sides, but in the big fight, he was there, and he did do some fighting. He had some cool things, but I feel like they kind of underutilized him because he's so powerful. He didn't really have somebody to fight him other than Scarlet Witch, but she kind of was fighting everybody, which was cool, but that was a little iffy as far as him not being as active, but still, it was really, really good. I loved the big fight scene that we all saw in the trailers, like the start of it at the airport. That was awesome. It was so good. And then the fight scene that we also saw in the trailers with Cap and Bucky fighting Iron Man. Not story-wise, I didn't care for that, and we'll talk about that. But the fight scene itself was just so good. The choreography, the characters using certain moves and things like that, it was so good. It's exactly how you want superhero fight scenes to be. I can't say it was so good so many more times, but it was. All of the action was great. That's what most people want out of these movies, I'm assuming. So that was good. And the story was good enough to carry the action, so that was good. Here's the thing about the story that bugs me, and I'm going to save talking about Black Panther for this part. Obviously, there's a rift between the two sides. One side says we need to be controlled by the UN. The other side says, no, that's a bad idea. Well, the one side that says we need to be controlled by the UN, which is led by Iron Man, and Black Panther is on that side also, their logic is so horribly flawed. As cool as Black Panther was in the movie, it wasn't until the end of the movie that I actually liked his character. I liked him, but I was like, I don't agree with you, man. It doesn't make any sense. So it didn't hurt the character, but it didn't help him. But at the end, he was aces as far as I was concerned. But the fighting and everything for Black Panther, awesome. The suit, awesome. So cool. I didn't know he was as powerful as they portrayed him in the movie. Is he that strong in the comics? Able to keep up with Cap and Iron Man? Everybody. He's full on super strong, apparently. I didn't know he was that strong, but he was. So that was cool. Anyway, back to the story part. Their logic is so flawed. Saying that the Avengers are to be held accountable for all of these bad things that happened is absolutely, utterly asinine. It makes no sense. If it wasn't for them, all of these events that they're referencing where people died would have been catastrophic, if not world-ending. Like Avengers 1, with Loki coming in with the Chitauri. Yeah, people died in New York. The Avengers should be held accountable. Why? They stopped countless more deaths because they couldn't stop all of them. They're to blame for it? That makes no sense. And the argument that Vision presented was that, well, we're strong, so it presents a challenge, and because of that challenge, people are going to do bad things. No. Having good guys does not present a challenge for bad guys. It's a deterrent, if anything. Bad guys aren't out there to say, oh, I'm stronger. They're out there to do whatever it is they're out there to do, which we saw in this movie. They're trying to kill people. They're trying to do this. They're trying to further their agendas. The Avengers are trying to stop them, but they're being held accountable. It's so moronic. It doesn't make any sense. Or the part in the beginning of this movie where Scarlet Witch takes the bomb and she puts it up in the air. Instead of killing all of the people on the ground, it killed some people in a building. That's not her fault. She still saved way more lives than were lost. It makes no sense. That's like saying if a fireman goes into a burning building and saves 8 of the 9 people that are in the building, it's his fault that 9th person died. No, it's not. It's the fire's fault or whoever started the fire. You don't blame the good guy for not having 100% success rate. It just makes no sense. And then as the movie goes on, there's lots of reasons why they're still wrong. Everything they do proves that Cap was right in the first place. The bureaucracy of it all, the red tape, the agendas, the monetary issue, the politics issue, none of it works. no matter what side of politics you're on, and there's tons of sides, I'm not just talking about in the US, but everywhere, no matter what side you're on, there's no example in history where governments have been efficient. You can say they're for the greater good or not. I'm not making that argument at all. I'm just saying they're not efficient. And just like Cap says, who's to say they're going to send us to the right place? Or who's to say they're going to let us fight at the right times? And throughout this movie, we see countless examples, well, I guess I could count them, but I didn't, of how Cap is right. Having the UN, this governing power, tell the Avengers what to do or where to go or who to fight, it won't work. It can't work. And it didn't. Throughout the entire movie, it didn't work. And it's also funny to note that Iron Man and T'Chaka, or is it T'Challa? I always confuse the two. It's T'Challa, right? Black Panther's T'Challa. Anyway, Black Panther. You know, they're like, yeah, these sanctions need to happen. But then as soon as they want to go do something, they go do it, even though it's completely against it. Especially Black Panther, I'm going to go kill Bucky. You were just in favor of these things, even though you said you don't like the bureaucracy of it. You were just in favor of it. And now as soon as it suits you, you want to go against it. You can't have it both ways. And the entire time, Cap keeps presenting these reasons and talking about it and showing everybody, and nobody's buying it until the very end. Oh, Cap was right, it turns out. And then even after Tony realizes Cap was right, and he goes to help him and Bucky, and he realizes, oh no, Bucky's the one that killed my parents. He knows Bucky was brainwashed. Sure, you're upset, but to go on this hell-bent rampage to try to kill him, and Cap if need be? Come on, the motives were so... I didn't buy it. It didn't suit his character, especially since throughout all of the Iron Man movies, Tony has been 100% against exactly what he's 100% for in this movie. I didn't buy it. So the motives were a little iffy for everybody. I mean, it just didn't make sense for the general idea of that side. But for Tony in particular, it was too flippy-floppy, wishy-washy. I didn't like it. It didn't detract enough from the movie for it to be a problem at all. The movie was still fantastic. I do wish it kind of resolved a little more by the end. I mean, we end up with a bunch of people, a bunch of good guys locked up just because they did what they had to do to stop bad guys. It was so ridiculous. But they're all locked up and Cap's breaking them out, so they're going to be free. But fugitives... And Iron Man is apparently just kind of like, I think I'm still against you, but I'm still not with the government. And it was just kind of like, there was not too much of a resolution. There was no, what's the word when you break up with somebody and you need to talk to them or something? I can't think of the word now. There was no, whatever. It didn't come to any real end. It kind of left me feeling a little floaty at the end. But it was good, man. Good otherwise. So good. So much fun to watch. The humor was spot on with Ant-Man and Bucky and Falcon. That was good. Falcon, by the way, I mean, he's probably the least powered out of all of these people. Hawkeye at least has skills. Falcon's just a regular guy with a wingsuit. So he didn't feel out of place at all. He had a really good role in this. Really enjoyed it. Every little part was good, other than those issues with the story that were like kind of like... It was almost irritating throughout the film to hear these ridiculous arguments being presented over and over again when every part of the movie is an example of why they're already wrong, but they're not getting it. But aside from that, everything was so good. I would venture to say that this is the best Marvel Cinematic Universe movie to date. Avengers 1 has a particular spot because they nailed everything, as far as I'm concerned, almost perfectly. And this does have those issues, but everything else, all of the already good stuff was maybe better, like the fighting and everything. It was really good. It was so good. I'm going to go watch it again. I'm shooting this first thing in the morning. I just saw it last night, so that's why I'm kind of like just doing this kind of off the cuff, not really any real format, just my fresh reaction to it. And I really liked it. I do feel like the bad guy was a little weak, though. Zemo was, as far as I know, it wasn't Baron Zemo. I mean, it wasn't, but it wasn't like, it could have been anybody, really. And he didn't really do anything other than instigate. And then at the end, he's going to the Siberia place to get the other super soldiers out, we think. But then he doesn't. He kills them all. So there was no, like, I know they wanted the fight scene to be between Cap and Iron Man. That's the big fight scene, I get that. But I feel like there should have been more of a bad guy element. These movies tend to be driven by their villains. If you have a good villain, you have a good movie, generally speaking. And I know this movie was about the good guys going at it, so you couldn't have too much of a villain, but I feel like they could have done a little bit more, especially with Crossbones. He wasn't in the movie very much at all. If you saw the trailers, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's a little bit more, but not much. And he was kind of cool, but he was kind of a throwaway at the same time, so I don't know. Like I said, there are things that could have been improved upon, but by and large, fantastic film. So good. And I'm probably forgetting stuff I wanted to talk about, but I will, I guess maybe I'll do another video after I watch the movie again, see if anything stands out. But, man, here's one thing, is Vision. Like, the whole Vision, well, I'll explain this in case you guys haven't seen it and you don't mind spoilers, since this was all about spoilers anyway. At the end of the airport fight scene, we saw in the trailers Rhodey gets shot down. We don't know by who. Something hits him and knocks him down, and he falls from really high up. So what happens is Falcon's chasing them, and Iron Man says, hey, Vision, I mean, it didn't work out exactly like this, but generally speaking, Vision shoots up to stop Falcon, which I'm thinking, if Vision shoots Falcon, it's going to be a serious thing, because Falcon's just a guy with a wingsuit. But Falcon dodges, so good for him, and the shot hits War Machine, who's in a giant Iron Man suit, and it totally disables the suit, and War Machine goes down and gets seriously injured, and Tony loses his mind. I almost said something I don't normally say on this channel. So Tony gets pissed off really bad, and he's like, I'm thinking the whole time, it's your fault. You did this. Not only generally speaking, but specifically this. Vision shot to do what you said, and he hit the wrong guy. And you're mad at everyone else. And then Tony shoots Falcon. Like, he didn't do it. It was Tony's whole side, Tony's mentality, and everybody on that side, with the exception of Black Widow, because she's not really on that side, but it was so faulty logic the entire time. It was so bad. It was irritating, but that was really my only complaint with the movie. Other things were just little things that could have been better. So if you guys haven't seen it yet, you need to go see it. And anything I've talked about really spoiler-wise, I don't think it's going to affect it. This movie wasn't the kind of movie... I just smacked the mic. Oops. It wasn't the kind of movie where spoilers are really going to make a difference. I mean, there weren't any like reveals or anything like that, really. I mean, little bits here and there, but nothing that's going to affect your viewing experience. So definitely go see it if you haven't yet. For sure, 100%. Fantastic film. There it is, guys. I'm going to stop rambling. When I see it again, if I have new thoughts, I'll do another video. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you thought about the movie if you haven't seen it. Let me know what you thought about or think about the movie if you... did I say if you haven't? Not sleeping again. If you have seen it, let me know what you thought. If you haven't seen it, let me know what you think based on what I've said, and then come back and comment once you have seen it. How's that? All right, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.